If the Army is democratic, and if it extends constitutional rights to its soldiers, it should allow us to put on the kind of show that we want to put on, which is not an inflammatory, far-left, outrageous show. It is simply an entertaining show which is anti-war.
When Richard Nixon admitted sending Americans into Cambodia in 1970, student riots erupted nationwide. At Ohio's Kent State, 4 were gunned down by the National Guard. In Chicago, 7 protest organizers were acquitted of conspiracy charges stemming from the riots at the '68 Democratic Convention. One of them, Tom Hayden, would soon figure prominently in Jane's life. Already, her own activities had provoked the FBI to start a Fonda file. Many others, however, simply viewed her as a tiresome nuisance, arriving too late with too little.
Politicians and candidates, beware! You have taken us for granted too long!
I always saw her as trying to continue what she saw as her father's role. I think she felt she was being very patriotic. She felt her country was making a mistake, and she was trying to help set it back on the right path.
The right path became a full-time job. The Indians needed a hand to occupy Alcatraz. Angela Davis and the Black Panthers required fundraising. Feminism deserved support, as did Chicano farm workers and welfare mothers. The civil rights movement was not forgotten either.
I mean, we were just, glad she was there and shocked that someone that safe, and that glamorous could be there. And we really appreciated it.
Jane's power to the people ultimately centered almost exclusively on the war, arousing Washington's cloak and dagger community. Soon, Fonda's name appeared on secret government documents and on police blotters in various cities. The top brass at the Pentagon were outraged when Jane began making unsanctioned appearances on or near U.S. military bases.
Amy was involved in persuading servicemen that they should not be involved in the Vietnam War. She was very successful. They had coffee houses all over the country, and she was a part of the coffee house movement.
She legitimized the anti-war movement to a lot of Americans that would not believe the government would do anything wrong. And it really made a difference. And I would say if you had to pinpoint one person that was the cause of that war ending when it did, would be her.
Every individual has responsibilities in life. She could have stayed in Hollywood and made a lot of money. She cared. She put herself on the line.
She also put herself back up on the silver screen, finally agreeing to do Clute after director Alan Pakula tracked her to New York.
She had broken up with Vadim then. She was, the whole political phase of her life had just begun. And I sat in this hotel room with her, and we were talking about the script, and suddenly she stopped me and said, "Don't I look different?" And I said, "What?" She said, "Can't you see the difference?" Well, the change that she'd gone through, obviously, in that few-month period, had been so enormous to her that she felt it just showed all over her face. I cast Donald Sutherland in the film. He was also involved in the anti-war movement. And there was a lot of flack outside. You'd say to people you working with Jane Fonda, and eyes would roll. And indeed, there was one point, I think, when you felt the crew putting up American flags on the trailers, which I'd never seen done before, which was, I felt, some sort of a protest. But even then, I found that the crew, which was very wary of her because of the obvious political involvements that frightened them, right or wrong, changed their attitude after they worked with her. Because Jane is a quintessential American person.
Jane was finished with Clute, but not with Donald Sutherland, with whom she began a real-life relationship. The two went back on the warpath together. forming a traveling variety group similar but far to the left of Bob Hope's USO shows. It was called FTA, or Bleep the Army.
We first traveled around the country entertaining, never on the bases because we were never allowed on the bases, but at various auditoriums and places outside the bases. We would leaflet the bases and soldiers would come off to hear us.
Mr. President, there's a terrible demonstration going on outside.
Oh, there's always a demonstration going on outside, Pat.
Yeah, but Richard, this one is completely out of control.
What are they asking for this time?
Free Angela Davis and all political prisoners, out of Vietnam now, and draft all government officials.
Well, we have people to take care of that. They'll do their job, you do your job, and I'll do my job.
Richard, you don't understand. They're storming the White House.
Oh, in that case, I better call out the 3rd Marines.
You can't, Richard.
Why not?
It is the 3rd Marine.
Oh.
The FTA show, which stood for Free the Army, or Fun, Travel, and Adventure, or whatever else you wanted to call it, was a response to something that already existed, which was soldiers resisting the war in Indochina. And this was a show to support them, to acknowledge what they were doing, to entertain them, to give them, to be kind of like a cheerleader for them, to say, right on.
A resounding right on greeted Jane when Clute opened and earned her another Academy Award nomination. But many Hollywood hardliners still felt that Hank Fonda's little girl ought to know her place.
Oh, Jane could have had the spotlight in a million other ways. You know, in fact, her career would have been much safer in a different spotlight. This was completely a heart issue for her.
We looked at Jane Fonda almost like she was doing a favor to be out there. I mean, she didn't have to worry about Vietnam. She wasn't going. Her daddy was too old and her brother was too rich. So what was she out there for?
We feel that the time has come when entertainers who take a different view on the war begin to reach the soldiers.
Never felt diviner than to be in Indochina making money.
Marching double time to a new and different drummer, Jane led her FTA troop on a tour of the Far East.
Cooperate, I'll give you quite a number of things. The Air Force and the CIA and opium rings.
She was always right there willing to try anything. So we asked her to sing, and she did. And she was not bad. You know, she's not a great singer, but she carried a tune and had a lot of energy. And, of course, the soldiers loved it. I mean, can you imagine? They loved Jane, and for her to get up and sing, they were always cheering her on.
The soldiers are respectable. Who cares if they die? Higher than the final flight to China. Ain't that funny? You hear me say it. From another city to say, oh yeah. From another city to say.
That would be Jane's last soft shoe dance for peace. The girl who, as Barbarella, wore little more than a silly grin, would soon put on Army combat boots and march herself to Hanoi. The American GIs who'd papered their barracks with pin-up girl posters of a sexy Jane were unprepared for the shock of her in uniform fatigues on an enemy anti-aircraft gun. More demoralizing to the U.S. troops would be the radio broadcast from their dream girl calling them war criminals. Coming up in the next hour, Hanoi Jane.